The Jacksonville Jaguars need Trevor Lawrence, and I'll show you why Trevor Lawrence needs the Jacksonville Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the daily podcast that is Locked On Jaguars, that is here to guide you through all of the gymnastics that come along with being a Jaguars fan as we approach the NFL season. And it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Shout out to the everydayers that dedicate 30 minutes of their day to stop through and find out what's going on with this team. From me, a credentialed member of the media, for about 2 decades now. I got my finger on the pulse of the team, and hopefully I lead them in the right direction. And if you're a newcomer, we welcome you here and hope that we give you a reason to camp out and hang out with us. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm going to give you a roadmap to today's show. I'm going to tell you where we end up first, and then we'll get to the beginning last. Trayvon and Trav mean a lot to this team. By Trav, I mean Travis Hunter. And they're going to be the last of 4 people that I'm going to name today as I talk about the people that are most important to this year's team. And this team's success could be very, very important to the way that they are viewed nationally, as well as for the rest of their careers. Brian Thomas Jr. is on the cusp of being elite. We're going to discuss that because there's some nuance to that. But first, we're going to start with the man of the hour, and that is the QB1, Trevor Lawrence. And he is the most important player to this team this year. That is obvious because quarterbacks are always the most important players to their team. But it takes on a little bit of a different meaning here for Trevor. And that's where we're going to that's where we're going to start. And we're going to get into it right now. Pre-snap answers. You've heard about pre-snaps answers or answers pre-snap. And one of the things that I believe has been an issue with consistency for Trevor Lawrence since he has been a Jacksonville Jaguar is an over-dependency on his raw talent and not enough dependency on not his teammates from the standpoint of effort. And I want to be very clear about that. But the dependability of his teammates based on their own greatness in their own individual vacuum and who and where they are. Also, I think there's been a complete lack of structure and insulation, if you will, around a great player that all the great players seem to have had in the past. But we expected Trevor to come in here and be a superhero, not only on the field, but behind a microphone in order to make up for discrepancies or shortcomings that may exist in messaging or have existed in messaging with the Jaguars. He was never allowed, in my opinion, to come in here and be a 21-year-old kid that could ingratiate himself with his teammates and focus on the things that he needed to focus on, because I thought that they just depended on raw talent. Throw the ball here, throw the ball there. Trevor was the starting point, and then everything was built up off of that. And when you look at it that way, I don't think in the past they went individually and tried to get the absolute best at each position that they could based on some restrictions because of the salary cap. But Trevor was on a rookie deal. And next year is the first year of his extension, although they've given him a bunch of money. But somehow, in some way, once they've committed all of this money to Trevor, the team decided that, no, we're going to go for it. We're going to give up a first-round pick and go out and get Travis Hunter, and we're going to put him next to Brian Thomas Jr. And we're going to spend $10 million on a one-year deal for our third receiver, even though it wasn't quite in that order, but it still manifested itself that way. And then we're going to go out here and make wholesale changes and bring in 4 offensive linemen in free agency, one of them in Fred Johnson, who's also been traded back to the team he came from, but get 2 rookies in the draft. Part of the reason he was able to be traded because both of those rookies, Wyatt Milam, as well as Jonah Monheim, made the team. And even though they're not tackles, it allowed them, the Jaguars, to then take some other guys that have versatility and allow them to play the tackle positions in a reserve role. And I think those things are very, very important because that's the way you look at it. They can slide Pat McCary. They can slide Chuma Udoga out to tackle very, very easily. Cole Van Lannon is a veteran swing piece. All of those things should have been taking place when Trevor was young. You get it? But they weren't. So now the question is can they go back now and do what should have been done, and how much effect does it have on Trevor Lawrence? And one of the things that is going to be his saving grace is I believe they worked on the mechanics. I believe they broke some things down to the studs, but more importantly, he believes in the pre-snap answers, or the answers pre-snap, that Liam Coen is going to provide. Now, it has to manifest itself on the field. But if it is going to, the tight end room is improved. The offensive line is improved. The versatility of the running backs, where guys will be using their superpowers. The thing that they do the best is the thing that this team is going to ask them to do, along with an acquisition of Tim Patrick and the continued ascension up in the minds and the consciousness of football observers of Parker Washington. It's not like they have any wasted positions. It's not like if a guy's out for a drive and they have to play somebody that they don't now have real confidence in the fact that those guys are going to be able to deliver. I think it's night and day. The communication that he has with the quarterbacks and the way the quarterback coach and the way the offensive staff is built and how they make everyone think, and process until it becomes second nature will be the thing that helps Trevor Lawrence improve to the point where all of the naysayers might have to go take a drink of water before they choke on the things that they've said in the past. The other thing is it helps him. So by him being the most important player on the team by nature, because he's QB1, and by the fact that the folks keep saying this is a make or break year. What do you mean? His extension kicks in next year. You think the Jaguars are going to let him walk out of the door with all of that money and all of that cap restrictions from dead space and move off of him after one season? No, it's not going to happen. Trevor Lawrence ain't going nowhere. So the reason why it's so important to him is because I'm sure he has and feels the pressure to show everybody that he's the real deal. The other part of it is, if he goes and all of these things around him help him become a dude that is in that top 7, top 8 conversation when it comes to quarterbacks, that means this team is doing better. And now you have Trevor being up here, the Jaguars being up here, and a whole bunch of people feeling like they ate biscuits without no water, choking on the things that they said about him. I want to talk about Brian Thomas Jr. because I vaguely mentioned him, but I want to mention this. He is the closest thing outside of 1 year from Justin Blackmon, and all we've seen is 1 year from Brian Thomas Jr. They were both talent-wise the closest thing we have seen to Jimmy Smith. And Jimmy Smith, to me, is a Hall of Famer. So I'm going to discuss Brian Thomas Jr., his sophomore year, and what it would mean for him to have a big, huge season here as the second most important player for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and presented to you by Upside. That's right. Hey, man, look, y'all know me. I'm Tony Wiggins. Are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo, Touchdown. That's right. And get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or e-gift card or for Amazon or other brands. Don't let this offer drive by you. Download the free Upside app now and use my limited time promo code Touchdown for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code Touchdown. Here's a little disclaimer for you. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. And today's show is also brought to you and sponsored by Game Time. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it is very, very frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I'm telling you, man, Game Time is the absolute truth, man. I pulled up and got me some tickets to see my man Maxwell, and they're really, really good seats, and I saved some money. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Moving and grooving here 1 week away from NFL weekend kicking off, less than a week before the first game on Thursday night. But your Jaguars will play September 6th at home versus the Carolina Panthers. Before we get there, though, a lot has to happen. A lot has happened. We won't see the team as much, even in the media with practice. The way practice will be limited as they head to game week and get ready to start preparing. So basically, it's a mystery right now to what we're going to see and how it's going to look. One thing that you have seen in the past, though, is even without Trevor Lawrence at quarterback last year, despite the Jaguars only winning 4 games, a bright spot was then first-year player and rookie Brian Thomas Jr. entering his second year. A little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, higher expectations. Brian is really, really hard on himself. If he dropped a pass or didn't catch a pass, he is the one that's going to run and put his hand up and say, that's on me. I'll get better. I'll improve. And then he'll come out the next day and have a great game. He's used to being number 2, at least in the eyes and minds of fans. He did it at LSU with Malik Neighbors, was even drafted 14 spots or so after Malik Neighbors. Statistically had a better season than Malik Neighbors, who also had a great year, by the way, and is a great player in his own right. But he ain't taking a back door to nobody, right? Well, maybe not. I might not be right about that because the Jaguars went out and traded a first-round pick and moved up and took Travis Hunter, who's going to play a whole lot of wide receiver. We'll get to him in segment number 3 because he's also one of my 4 important players this year. But I still think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to show up statistically as well as just football-wise as an NFL superstar. I have previously said I think he's a top 8 receiver, and he ain't number 8. And a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy, and they say I need to see more. I don't. If he does exactly what he did last year, you can't tell me he's not a top 8 receiver. And when people say they need to see more, for what? He ain't going to fall off. There's nothing about the way he played last year and his skill set that indicates that he won't be able to do that this year. The only thing is we never know who's going to be healthy and who's not. And we don't really like to discuss those things, especially using the I word on this show, because I think it speaks things into existence. But if all you're saying is that he needs to stay healthy and you need to see it, there's nothing. It's almost like watching a dude shoot jump shots and he hits 8 out of 10 and you say, well, I don't know if he can really shoot. He might be just having a bad day. Let's do it again. Football ain't like that. You don't do what he did over a 17-game season by accident. The question is was he a number 1 on a bad team, or realistically, is he a number 2 on a great team? That's a real good question. And you wonder, well, what's the great team? What we're doing is hypothetically saying if the Jaguars are going to get to where they want to get to and where the fans want them to get to, what would he look like? What would he be? Would he be Jamar Chase, or would he be T. Higgins? Would he be Justin Jefferson, or would he be Jordan Addison? Is he going to be Mike Evans, or is he going to be Chris Conley? And I'll tell you this, whichever one he is does not matter to me. I'd rather say, okay, you got Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Both of them are lights out receivers. That's what you're going to have. You're going to have a situation where There's both. I think he's going to be great. And I think it's going to be recognizable because Trevor Lawrence has a great year. I think Brian Thomas Jr. has a great year, right? And I think they'll work hand in hand, and one thing will lead to the other. But even more so than that, we're going to get to a point where guys are going to be really, really good or great at some point, and their numbers won't necessarily reflect their impact. A.J. Brown is one of those players. If you look in reverse at Tyreek Hill's numbers and his career, Tyreek Hill was the truth in Kansas City. Tyreek Hill goes to Miami and has statistically the best season he's ever had, but he's not viewed as the greatest, the great player that he was in Kansas City, because when he was in Kansas City, it was all attached to winning. So it's hard to imagine this when you're looking at it from a Jaguars perspective, because the goal is to get great. But so many teams around the league in the past have adopted, okay, we got a number one receiver, we need to get a number two. James Gladstone says, what do you mean? We got a number one receiver. Let's go get another guy that's dynamic and great too, and have two of them, and just trust our system, trust our coaches, trust all of that stuff. Why do we have to only have one great receiver? Who says we can't have two? Normally, if you have a dude that does what Brian Thomas Jr. did as a rookie, the team ain't even looking for a receiver that's just as good as he is the next year. They're looking for somebody that they can complement him with. They're looking for somebody they can say, all right, you're number two, you're a slot. You know, we're going to start with him, but when we call your number, oh, no. There ain't none of that going on here in Jacksonville. Jacksonville's saying, you know what we're going to do? We're going to be bold. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to chop back. We're going to get the absolute best players we can absolutely get, and we're going to let all of that work itself out once they get out there on the grass. And you know who usually doesn't have a problem with how that works out? The players that are out there working it out. Because one thing about it is, they're in practice. If somebody's better than Brian Thomas Jr. and he knows it, he ain't going to trip. If he's the best and the other guy says, no, he ain't going to trip, because the work speaks for itself when the ego is not present. And I believe the way the Jaguars have built their team with the type of people that they have, and these guys aren't, Travis Hunter ain't used to losing. I know everybody's going to say he lost a lot of games at Colorado, but when you think relatively what they did to lift that program, that wasn't losing. They're just going to be, hopefully, the foundation for a resurgence of college football out there. That's the way they're looking at it. He ain't lost nothing. That dude won he won the Biletnikoff Award, and should have won the Thorpe Award, and should have been the Defensive Player of the Year and the Offensive Player of the Year, and he won the Heisman Trophy. So that dude ain't losing nothing. Brian Thomas Jr. is used to winning more games than he's losing at LSU, right? And now they lost a lot of games. I just think these people, Trevor Lawrence didn't lose, 3 games before he ever came to the NFL, all the way back to when he was in middle school. Dudes want to win, man. And however they have to do it, as long as everybody's working together, they're going to accept that. I talked a lot about Travis. I'll tell you why he's one of the most important players, too, in segment number 3. But he has company. There's a defensive player that I'm going to do, because I'm doing 4 people today. His name is Trayvon Walker. We'll get to that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, we got a little survey for you, man, a listener survey. We have a little bit of an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We're putting together a survey, and they have put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends, presented by our friends over at Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already about over. It is over. In fact, the new games, the real games, start next week in college football. Ooh, good action starting right now today. Whether you've got your eye on big game or big name quarterbacks, breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. All right, so I was going to tell y'all that Dak Prescott had a chance to win MVP, and he gonna have to if the Dallas Cowboys are going to do anything after that dumb trade that they just made. All right, download the Prize Picks app today and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That code is Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, run your game. Shake, rattle, and roll. That's what we're about to do here in about a week as toe hits leather in the National Football League, and the games are going to count. Oh, man, I can't wait. I know Jaguar fans can't wait, man. I know y'all going to be chomping at the bit in this last week to get there. So if you're on a plane or you're just at work and you need a fix, go check out the Locked On Podcast newsletter. It's at Locked On Podcasts with an S.com/newsletter. Enjoy it, man. They do a lot of hard work on it. A lot of good information coming up from around the National Football League, too. And you get a chance to read and meet some of the people from around the network. So make sure you check that out and enjoy it. We mentioned Trevor Lawrence and, of course, Brian Thomas Jr. is two of the most important people for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. I'm going to get to Travis Hunter. We talked a little bit about him. The reason why Travis is important, I was at a draft party the other day, and there are people still concerned about his frame. Like, man, he's so narrow, man. He's going to take a beating. He's going to do this and that. And then I told him, go look at Sauce Gardner's bill. I told him, go look at Devontae Smith. Go look at Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. There are dudes thriving around the league that are kind of slim built like that, man. If you really look at Travis, he is wiry strong. If you see him in person, while he might look slim, he's a slim, muscular, wiry, strong dude. And I've never seen him knocked off of his square. I've never seen him get bodied on jump balls, any of that stuff. So that is not a concern to me. And the Jaguars, have the wherewithal to know when to put him out there, when not to. There were people saying, okay, he missed the whole 10 days because he's banged up. I think it's all precautionary. I really think the Jaguars have to save him from himself, because if Travis could, all he would do is wake up and either go fishing and play football. Fishing is the only thing that could probably pull him away. I think the dude would literally work 18 hours a day if he could. And that's why they love him. But from the standpoint and perspective of his production, I don't know if it has to be the volume that a number one receiver like Brian Thomas Jr. Is going to be expected to do, but I do think it has to be impactful. It has to be impactful on offense. It has to be impactful on defense. The easiest way to measure the impact is whether or not the team is winning, but that's a team issue. But I do believe his big plays are going to show up. And I mentioned this, that I was at practice and Jared Bell from the USA Today was there. And we had just a brief conversation because I went up and introduced myself to him. I said, this might have a little bit of a Reggie Bush feel to it, or a Percy Harvin feel to it, where you get all the hype. And then it's like you look at the stat sheet and you don't really see it. But when you watch the games, you can tell how dangerous these dudes are. Percy Harvin showed up in the Super Bowl with the underdog Seattle Seahawks, and they did their thing. Reggie Bush, time and time again, would make big play after big play after big play. But then you look at the numbers and you go, the numbers aren't numbering, right? I think they're going to number enough that people will be quiet about Travis. But I think that you'll see the wow plays. In fact, if on FanDuel, perhaps, if FanDuel had something to say over the career of Travis Hunter, do you think he's going to do something in one game that has never been done before? I think he has a chance to catch a touchdown, get a pick six, and return a punt for a touchdown in a big game. He's the kind of player that can do it. Darrell Green used to do that. And I know I'm showing my age, but Darrell Green used to do it for Washington back in the day, where he wouldn't return punts until they got into the playoffs. You've seen Tyreek Hill return punts for the Chiefs in big games and during the playoffs. And you saw Deion Sanders do that in big games during the playoffs. Deshaun Jackson in big games during the playoffs. There's a pathway to get Travis Hunter to have an impact that will overshadow his stats. And a lot of that comes with winning. and doing it in games that are very, very important. So I have him in the top 4 as well. My last one is Trayvon Walker. He's a fan favorite. He's a favorite of mine because I love people that people don't believe in. And when they don't believe in them just because they're not paying attention to the substance of something, but paying attention to all of the other stuff. Shout out to whoever y'all think is better than him, because I know to be in that position, they worked hard too. But I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about acknowledging the fact that this young man has 20 and a half sacks over the last 2 years, and you still got people talking about they need to trade him away for a 3rd round pick. Ridiculous. They picked up his 5th-year option. The new staff, once they got around him, realized exactly who he was and what he is. They need that DNA in their team. I believe this year, with not only his improvement and getting the weight off that other people asked him to gain, but with their total mindset of all gas, no brakes, a system that's going to allow him to be a game wrecker like he has already been. But now the game wrecking will be more noticeable as the team gets better. Micah Parsons got 4 years, $188 million to reset the market. Trayvon is one of those dudes, along with Aiden Hutchinson, that's up next. He's not going to reset the market. You're not going to get more money than Micah Parsons. But I wouldn't be shocked if you saw 4 years, $130 million with $100 million guaranteed sitting in that man's face. And if he does what I think he's going to do, they better do it quickly, because he is not going to ever slow down. Trayvon Walker, like 24 years old, man, and is a man-child. This year, I believe he's going to be their best player on defense, with a little bit of a wink for Travis whenever he is on defense. I just think they're going to turn him loose. He's going to have a great, great season, man, and people are going to really realize his value around the National Football League. So there it is, those 4. Trevor Lawrence, Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, and Trayvon Walker, in that order, in my opinion, are the 4 most important teams for the Jacksonville Jaguars to have the success that they need. Man, it's another big moment for Locked On college football fans. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jess Holly, and Locked On's local experts. College football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. I hope y'all don't fire me as your favorite podcast host. You can't do it anyway, man, but I'm going to give you a reason to make sure you don't ask my boss to fire me, because I'm going to keep my finger on the pulse of the team and keep my foot on the gas, just like the Jaguars, man. It's all gas, no brakes from this point moving forward. And I'm glad y'all riding shotgun with me each and every day, because the time you spend here with me is not taken for granted, and I am appreciative of it. And I hope I give you a reason to be proud to be called an everydayer. Until next time, I'm Tony Wiggins here with the Locked On Jaguars podcast. Y'all take care.